Hello and welcome to my video essay about It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. This show has been around for 20 years and has been making horrible jokes for the whole time. This show is a little confusing sometimes because the storylines are pretty wild and the characters are pretty terrible people, but if you look past all the crazy schemes and their total self-interest, you'll find that the show actually has some really interesting and sometimes controversial things to say about today's social and political environment. It's not just about, the crude jokes and how the main characters are messed up and horrible people, but it's actually a commentary on modern American life. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is especially famous because it pushes boundaries. It really talks about class and gender and race and sexuality and even political correctness. But it does this in a really exaggerated and sometimes even problematic way. The characters, called the gang, never learn from their mistakes and are always doing whatever is best for themselves. They're never thinking about others. And on the surface, that's a little bit disturbing, but if you think about it, it is really a fresh way to think about social rules and all the worries that come with them. So my main question for the project is, how does It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia use the extreme social deviancy of its main characters to critique and comment on modern American social and political issues? In order to answer this question, I watched 5 episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I watched The High School Reunion Part 2, The Gang's Revenge, Season 7, Episode 2, The Gang Gets Racist, Season 1, Episode 1, The Gang Buys a Boat, Season 6, Episode 5, Mac and Dennis Buy a Timeshare, Season 12, Episode 3, The Gang Tries Desperately to Win an Award, Season 9, Episode 3. So I really tried to pick episodes that really talked about the specific social or political issues that were big deals at the time that they were aired. This helped me think about how the show talks about the different social topics and how they were evolving. I watched all of the episodes on Hulu, and for picking them, I used purposive sampling. This was basically that I just chose 5 to 7 episodes that clearly dealt with modern social and political themes, like gender roles, race, economic inequality, political correctness, and mental health. The reason I did this was to make sure that the episodes gave me really good examples to support my question, which then made it so that I could talk more about the show's social commentary. My process just involved watching each of these episodes and writing down any interesting bits or comments they made so I could really break them down. I tried to find one episode for each issue I identified, and I paid really close attention to any direct comments they made about those issues. And of course, I made sure to write down the episode, season, and timestamps for any quotes that I found. In order to make sure that my research was based in facts and concepts from other social scientists, I made sure to keep in mind a few ideas from our course. One of the most important concepts was from John Fiske, and specifically his ideas on offensive bodies and carnival pleasures. These ideas helped me talk about how and think about how It's Always Sunny uses offensive or unconventional bodies or behaviors to kind of make something funny. The characters in the show a lot of the times ignore social rules, and Fiske can help explain how the show actually uses this to criticize those norms. So, a common scenario in It's Always Sunny is where a character's exaggerated physical appearance or even gross habits are played for laughs. I can't show you the exact clip, but an example is in Season 7, Episode 12, where Frank is increasingly just weird and offensive, and the behavior is really starting to affect other people. His appearance, too, is totally like what the humor is focused in on, and it's pushing the boundaries to the point of discomfort. The way that he's portrayed is, even though it's absurd, shows how the series uses extreme examples of going against social norms to make these sort of comedic carnival pleasures. This lets the audience laugh at things that are usually considered off limits, and it also subtly critiques the norms that it is showing them pushing up against. So the gang's offensive physicality and actions aren't just crude, but they are actually a way for the show to comment on societal issues. Going along with that, the next sources that I wanted to talk about were Collins and Marx. So the show really deals with stereotypes, and the representations of those stereotypes line up really well with the work of Collins and Marx. So Collins talks about how power dynamics play such a big role in how certain identities are shown in media. And her work, Mammies, Matriarchs, and Other Controlling Images, is a really important look into this. And I thought about that a lot while I was watching these episodes and making my notes. Marx specifically looks at how comedy tackles issues of race and gender, which is also really important when watching It's Always Sunny. So the characters often have awkward conversations about race and gender, and they just get more and more out of touch. For example, in the first episode of the first season called The Gang Gets Racist, the characters attempt to be inclusive, but it does not go well. And it really shows how deep-seated their own biases are and how some social interactions can feel like a performance. By taking stereotypes to such a ridiculous level, this uncomfortable humor really makes the audience confront their underlying prejudices that exist within themselves and society. And beyond that, Kristen Sternheimer's Beyond Popular Culture, Why Inequality is the Problem, really gives us an opportunity to look at how the show comments on economic inequality and all the problems it causes. So the gang in It's Always Sunny is often, almost always, trying to get rich or climb the social ladder. And it is always at other people's expense, even their own friends. And this really follows, bigger societal issues of economic differences and points out how when you're at the bottom and you're trying to get up, your connections and your family and your friends might end up not mattering to you as much if you're that desperate. So in season 6, episode 5, the gang buys a boat. Their ridiculous plan to impress people by owning a boat really turns just into chaos because they are all so greedy and they don't have any concern for anyone else. This shows the problems that unchecked ambition and economic gaps can create. And Sternheimer's work helps us to see that these scenarios that are supposed to be funny are not as funny as they really are because they show us the real world problems that many face. So the big takeaway from all of this is that even with all of the offensive humor and flawed characters that It's Always Sunny has, it actually gives us some really interesting insights into modern society. By pushing the boundaries and showing how insane things can get through the gang's super deviant behavior that is just ridiculous, the show manages to make complex societal issues kind of relatable for a general audience. It uses satire not to say that problematic views are okay, but to expose how ridiculous and anxious people are about our social and political landscape. The fact that the gang never learns is a constant, and even though it's uncomfortable, really important reminder of how common different social issues and human flaws can be. At the end of the day, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is a unique example of how popular culture can hold a mirror up to society. Even if it's a little bit twisted, it makes us face some uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the worlds that we live in that we wouldn't be able to face otherwise. Thank you for watching. For a full list of all the references and citations that I used, you can check the video description below.